Burton appearing on behalf of the people.
May it please the court, Your Honor, Attorney Robert Hamburger, bar number
Hamburgers, the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast.
P14570. I'm a former Special Assistant Attorney General, and I've been retained by Brandy Green.
Okay, I'm not sure why you told me about the former Attorney General part, but
I have two sets of dockets here. Which one is?
One's morning, one's afternoon.
No, I was.
It's like the same to me, don't you?
No, there wasn't an amended one or anything, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now. That's two's better than one, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, are you Nicholas Calvin?
Sure.
We have.
Oh, sorry about that, Jay. You know, I had to make sure. My bad.
I'm looking. Once again. Got one,
It's
two, three, four cases here,
you just missed two.
and 40 and 41 are the ones that he pleaded guilty to, correct?
Yeah.
The other two, 742 unauthorized use of a motor vehicle and 1430 theft of a firearm or to be dismissed as part of this agreement.
Yes, sir.
All of them. 24 CR 741 and 740 are both called the state of Texas versus Nicholas R. Calvin. You are Mr. Calvin.
Yes,
Present with Mr. Adams, your attorney and the state's attorney. Earlier, you pleaded guilty to aggravated robbery in 740, a first degree felony, and the third degree felony of evading arrest or detention with a motor vehicle in 741. A pre-sentence report has been prepared in these cases. Have the parties had an opportunity to review it? Are there any corrections or changes to it?
no, sir. No objections, Judge.
It's made a part of the record for all purposes. The agreement is whatever sentence shall not exceed a cap of 10 years in prison in each case. So looks like what we have is no less than 2 nor more than 10 years. No less than 5 nor more than 10 years confinement in 740.
Yes, sir.
No less than 2 nor more than 10 years confinement in 741, the third degree felony. Also, deferred or unadjudicated probation can be assessed up to 10 years in length in each of those cases. And finally, evading arrest or detention with a motor vehicle, that can be subject to regular probation of no less than 2 nor more than 10 years confinement, probated for up to 10 years. The aggravated robbery in 740, I don't believe that is subject to regular probation, right? Because
That's correct, Judge.
deadly weapon was used. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Namely a firearm. All right. You want to go first?
Oh, sure. Judge, what I was asking is that you consider my client for deferred adjudication and probation. I would anticipate looking on page 1 of the pre-sentence, or really it's actually page 2 of the pre-sentence investigative report, where Officer Shoemaker with the Beaumont Police Department is recommending a max per this agreement. What I'm asking judges is that if you go to page 3, when I met with his father, Mr. Morrow Hampton, one of the things that he and I talked about was I asked him to go to the probation department and make a statement about his son. And in his statement, you see where he wasn't even involved in his kid's life until he was 13 years old. And if you look,
He's 17 now, right? How old are you
17
now?
17.
Yeah.
Right. So he didn't really have a active father in his life until he was 13. And I get that by way of his father's statement in the PSI. But what I also want to bring your attention to is that if you look to his social personal history, particularly on page 5, where it says he's residing with his mother, Sharika Smith, Sharicia Smith. In my interviews and in talking with my client, what I later learned is that Ms. Smith is currently incarcerated in the Harris County Jail, where she's currently serving a sentence. Is that right? That he's in this. So what I want you to see is that what led us to this particular point, Judge, is that you had a child who's 17 years old now that was basically raised by the streets. His daddy wasn't around. The mama, as I understand it, was in and out on drugs and in and out of jail. She's currently in prison right now. And he didn't have any significant role model in his life. The reason why I'm asking you to consider probation for him is that the TRS is moderate/high, but with him being a 17-year-old juvenile, when I looked on page specifically of the PSI, where they talked about his history, to my understanding, he's never been placed on adult probation in life. And I'm referring on page 4, where it has his adult felony court history, and that is everything is with these particular cases. So with him never being placed on felony court probation, there's things that your court and programs that can offer him that was not offered for him when he was a juvenile. And particularly what I'm asking, Judge, is that his daddy is now willing to step up to the plate. He wants to step up to the plate. He's reached out to me several times about his son. It appears that he wants to rekindle that relationship that he does have with his son. And he's basically saying, and I think the son is also saying is that he's been misguided by not having dad in his life and having a mama that was on drugs and a mama that was in and out of prison. And at least from what he's telling me, his mama is currently in prison. So under those circumstances and conditions, where, as they say, the street raised him, he learned some habits that brought him to where we are today. So he's asking for the mercy of the court to give him probation on these 2 cases and not send him to the penitentiary. And the last thing, Judge, I want to bring your attention, and here's where I stop, is just recently he was just more punishment. And I guess it's not considered punishment, but recently he was assaulted in the Jefferson County Jail, where he was jumped by several inmates. And I think he still has some injuries from that today, right? Once you jump while you were in jail? Yes, sir. And I think he was beat, from my understanding and talking to him, he was beat pretty bad. And the reason I raised that point for him is that we know that many times the young kids are taken advantage of in TDCJ. And with him being 17 years old, he's already been beat up real bad in the Jefferson County Jail. And that's what you told me? Yes, sir. And that I would hate to see, what would happen to him in adult male prison, considering that he's already been taken advantage of in local custody. So we're asking for leniency from the court and on the 10-year cap deal to consider probation.
All right, stay.
Judge, I think a 10-year sentence is appropriate on this case. As a reason for the cap there. I can appreciate the defense's perspective, but there's multiple reasons why it's the right reason. Number one, we start with the defendant's lack of a real acceptance of responsibility for this offense. And that comes from reading his version on page 1 of the PSI. Number two, you hear from 3 different detectives in regards to the statements of interested parties. It really gives us some insight about the behavior of Mr. Calvin here. It's not the way it's been portrayed as defense counsel. It's the fact here that just like Detective Smoker talked about, gun violence in our city is out of control. I agree with those statements he made, and we've got to send a message. If we don't do it with each individual and treat them individually, then we end up with what the real conduct here is. This individual was indicted on April 10th, 24, and that was after he was certified as a juvenile. He's transferred over into the adult system. So surely that would be a wake-up call, right? It wasn't. He ends up getting arrested on May 21, 24 for this offense with this PC, which results in the unlawfully carrying of a weapon offense that's set for trial. So it means he's not really going to change his conduct. Nothing that he's done has indicated that for us, and that goes right in line with what the detectives told you on page 2 of this PSI. When we look at his conduct in the juvenile, where he was given an opportunity to try to change what he was doing at a time in which, again, the argument from defense counsel is his father wasn't involved. In 2022, he was back and he was in contact with him. He got charged with deadly conduct, unlawfully carrying a weapon. Those offenses resulted in probation, but they failed because of these new offenses that he got certified on. It wasn't until June 31st of 2024 when this individual stops using daily use of marijuana. So a lot of this is just his own conduct, Judge. And it's even disconcerting when you look at what his statements are underneath the recommendations to our probation officer here. Again, he doesn't accept responsibility. He just says he doesn't want to go to prison. I mean, who does want to go to prison? But the reality is, on behalf of Jefferson County, I've got to ask that you consider the 10 years pen time so we can all sleep a little safer tonight.
Judge, my only response is that with him being 17 years old, we're asking that the court give him at least a shot. There's things that you can do on this probation, or this ankle monitor, more recognition of therapy programs. Maybe we can get him set up with a mentor program. The bottom line is that, and I use the language, and I know it's slang language to say that the streets raised you, but in this case, that's exactly what you got. By admission, his father, in the letter you just read, said he wasn't around till the boy was 13 years old. The mom is currently in jail as we speak. As we speak, the mom is, I'm sorry. As we speak, the mom is sitting in jail in Houston, Texas, Harris County. So what you got is a kid, unlike, many of us here in the court who didn't have any guidance at all, none, zero. And I think that if he gets that guidance with your court under your supervision, one of the things that I hear you talk about all the time is you'll say all the time, you'll say, look at the successful rate of my probation department. That's one of the big things that you point out. And I'm bringing that up in response to the state's arguments in terms of giving him the max. You yourself say your probation department is very successful with the people.
Because it is.
Because it is. And knowing that your probation department is successful with this particular kid, here's an opportunity to bring him to that successful department that can help turn him around. And I think that he will do you good and he'll do you justice. And that's why I'm asking.
Okay. You want to say anything, sir?
Yes, sir. No, sir. At the moment that I've been incarcerated, sir, at this time with these charges, I've been thinking, been regretting what I have done. I wrote in my statement on that probation paper and had me write down, that if the people was here right now, I apologize because I really didn't mean put them through what they have been through. I want to get back, and be there for my siblings, for stopping them from coming, my same paths. I have a little brother that just turned 15, and I don't want him, thinking it's cool to be out there trying, look cool in front of all of the kids, the older kids out there that's doing that. And I want him to continue doing what he was doing as playing sports, as well as me, that I want to get back in sports and also work as a truck driver once I turn 18, sir.
And tell me what sport you played.
I'll play basketball, sir, as a point guard.
Well, yeah, how many professional athletes are terrible role models? That doesn't help me. I mean, I play sports. You did. Your son. We all know about sports. It can be good or it can be bad, but it's not the sports that runs the world. I know that there are money and it's glamour and entertainment, but at the end of the day, it's moral choice making, following the rules, being a good parent, being a good son. I think the problem we have here that you can't undo is Mr. Adams here is urging, well, with supervision, you can be successful. Well, you were supervised on 8 separate occasions for juvenile court and failed. And I'm on the juvenile board, and I know those people are good at what they do. It's kind of like a test. How are you going to do as an adult? You failed. And unfortunately, it's not all too often. The pathetic part of this is it's not all your fault. Your parents, the role models, one's in prison, and one had little or nothing to do with you. So it's a tragedy. I just wish there were crimes out there for absolute failure to parent. Some people maybe ought to go to prison for that, because here's what happens. Another person ends up losing their future and going to prison because of an absolute failure in parenting. But still, the way the rules of law work, you still make your own choices. And here, with your rich juvenile court history, you knew actions had consequences, and we would come in and deal with you. You were taken out off the streets. You were placed in confinement. You were placed on probations, supervisions, numerous times, 8 separate instances before you committed these crimes that we're here for. And you didn't react well to that. Nor did your parents, which is the absolute shame. And here, the statements of interested parties, which are part of the pre-sentence report that is admitted into evidence here. The people who investigated you from the Beaumont Police Department, his behavior has not changed, as he has had plenty of time to do so. He has been involved in or in possession of weapons for years now. Another detective. Gun violence has become a pandemic in Beaumont. Yeah, it's on the front page. We get hit all the time. But it's not me doing it. It's you and others who make the choices. And it's not from a lack of catching and identifying the suspects. That was kind of an editorial comment he added, because the police feel futility in what they're doing, because it's a revolving door. You don't get it. You and others don't get it. You get arrested, punished, and you're back doing the same thing. And you're supposed to learn, when I touch a hot stove, it burns. But no, you embrace the hot stove. You enjoy being burned. In other words, you enjoy going back into confinement. You look for ways to get arrested. Been reported he's displayed firearms in the presence of young children, threatened his own family members. His own family says that he shot at someone. He has a tremendous disregard toward human life. It is safe to say that Calvin is an habitual violent offender and associates himself with school-aged juveniles. He is not a role model we need in this town. And finally, a third one. Calvin claims he wants a body on a gun, meaning a murder, and is constantly finding access to firearms. This one of the offenses he's pleading guilty to, he chose to fight 3 police officers on the steps of the complex being arrested. He showed little regard for his own life, while 2 guns were pulled off of his co-conspirators who also had no regard. And finally, a letter I'm looking at from your father. I am proud of the young man he is becoming. I don't even know where he's getting that from. And I am committed to providing him with the guidance and support he needs to succeed. Well, that's never been actually a fact. That's never been shown this whole time, from what I read here in the pre-sentence report. Here, where you've made bad choices. You've consistently made bad choices. We tried to stop you from doing it over and over, 8 separate times here for juvenile arrests and handling you before you committed these new offenses. So what do we do in this modern day tragedy here in Southeast Texas that happens so too often? Consistent, here you are, 17, just 17. And you've got all these prior arrests, consistency in guns, using guns and shooting at people, and attachment with gang activity. And little or no parenting. No role modeling there. One's in prison, and one really hadn't been an influence at all in their life. And so we've got a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of situation. You feel sorry. People can feel sorry for you. And then also, though, the people who have stepped in to be a surrogate parent, the juvenile probation officers, they weren't able to help you. And they're the ones who had a constant experience with you for, well, since 2017, 2020 through 2023. All right. This is just a terrible situation that can't be fixed right here in this hearing. I wish it could be. But what I can deal with is we have tried eight times here in 8 separate cases to be a surrogate parent through probation, juvenile probation, who are very effective at what they do, and you have failed. And And after all of that, committed two very serious offenses, this aggravated robbery and then evading arrest or detention with a motor vehicle. If nothing further, this court, again, sad, but all too often it's what is present in the fact situation in this courtroom, which seems almost systemic. And it's just a formula for disaster. Zero parenting, failure in parenting, failure in supervision and role modeling, and then a failure to respond by the young defendant to attempts to rehabilitate and supervise through the juvenile probation office. Puts us in a situation that is a corner now. And it's just a matter of trying to ensure that the safety of the community is foremost with you. In each of these cases, you have pleaded guilty voluntarily. You were mentally competent to do so. You understand and appreciate the consequences of pleading guilty. There's sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea. And State's Exhibit 1 admitted in each of these cases to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in each of these cases. I am following the agreements in 24 CR 740, the first degree felony of aggravated robbery. You were hereby sentenced to confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 10 years. And an affirmative finding that a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, was used in the commission of the offense will be part of the judgment and record in that case. And in 24 CR 741, the third degree felony of evading arrest or detention with a motor vehicle, you are hereby sentenced to confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 10 years in that case. And what I'm going to do in that case is place you on regular probation for 10 years in that case. These sentences shall run concurrently. What that means is when you are paroled in the aggravated robbery, which you should be paroled before 10 years are served, then you will continue supervision, adult supervision in the adult probation system here that has success. It is a tragedy. It happens too often, but there is a general recipe for it. Failure for parenting and failure for the young person to make the decisions that most people should be making, even with average intelligence. But when the family fails as a unit, then there's a natural tendency to seek out a family through a gang, and the role modeling in the gangs are tragic and are destined for failure and disaster. And that's what's happened in this case. Anything else? That is all. Now, those other two cases shall be dismissed.
Yes.
Langston, you had Lazaro Gort.
So he's not in the jail.